What is up, everybody? We are back for season 5 of Big Blue Avenue. It is the season premiere. My name is Tom Scavetta, joined alongside my lovely co-host, Sam Cardona Norberg. Now, Sam, congratulations. How's the married life going?
Oh my God, that was so crazy. I was like, for a second, I was just like, wait, why does he keep going saying my name? That's right. I am officially married as of June of this year. I am loving married life. It's very similar to dating life, and I'm having a great time. But Tom, I am so excited to be here with you. And for our viewers at home, that intro video will be updated by next week. I just saw the Saquon Barkley clip, and I just like almost lost it.
It's hard. It's tough. And
Yeah.
the Eagles really one-upped us too on cutdown day. I'll explain that one in a moment as well. But we're very excited to be back, folks. It is season 5 with Tom and Sam. Very excited. If you are new, tuning in, joining us tonight for the first time, whether you're watching this live or on replay, please make sure to check us out on all of our social media on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube below. We also have a link tree in the making. We will share that as well once we get that squared away. So, Sam, we actually have our – oh, nope, that was me. Never mind. Our first comment was from me, just spreading it around to everybody. How are you feeling heading into week 1? First off, what were your thoughts on the offseason? I know we weren't really going to talk about Hard Knocks, but overall, your thoughts on losing Saquon officially now, having Devin Singletary, a revamped offensive line, the rookies, just everything. What are like your key takeaways from everything that's happened? If you have to point out like one or two things.
All right. So, well, first of all, Saquon trade going back, many months at this point was definitely heartbreaking for us. I kind of I keep going back and forth about how to feel about this season. Like sometimes, I think I texted you and I was like, oh my God, like our wide receiver room actually looks really good. And you even mentioned over the summer in a couple of videos saying Richie James isn't someone who would have made this roster, and Isaiah Hodgins is on the practice squad and things along those lines. So I'm like super stoked about like Malik Nabers and that wide receiver room. But then at the same time, I get really nervous with like our run game and obviously losing Saquon. And I will say I'm thrusting my trust into Devin Singletary. I drafted him in our fantasy league, put him on my bench. Maybe, who knows? You never know if he's gonna pop off if they keep feeding him the ball. Especially with our improved offensive line, which we'll get into in just a little bit. But it's like I have this like false optimism that isn't going to be shattered until I physically see them on the field. Like I'm going to go into week 1 the same way I went into week 1 last year, which was like, oh, this is going to be a great year. And it really wasn't.
I hear you. I totally get it. I'm indifferent about this season. I think it's going to be a much better season than last year. I don't know how many upticks and wins that'll result in, but it is week 1. James Kent, appreciate the comment, even though it's a negative one. Look, we do have 17 games ahead of us to prove that comment wrong. And I'm hopeful for the best. It's going to start with the Minnesota Vikings this weekend in week 1. And it's the 100th season of New York Giants football. How exciting is that? 100 years, 1925. The first year of Giants football. And Sam, all summer, I don't know if you've been following the Giants YouTube channel, they've been counting down amongst the committee the top 100 players in Giants history, and the top 10 was revealed yesterday.
Oh, I didn't see it. Who was number 1?
Lawrence Taylor was number 1.
Makes sense.
Roosevelt Brown was number 2. Eli Manning was number 8.
Okay.
Harry Carson was number 7. Sam Huff was I believe Sam Huff was number 6. Michael Strahan was number 5. And then I believe Frank Gifford was number 4. And then the back end, 9 and 10, you had Andy Robustelli, guys like that. you want the official order, go to the Giants YouTube channel and get it there. But yeah, Eli Manning, great to see. And Brian Itzard, good friend of the show. Brian was part of our season premiere last year. We're not playing the Cowboys this week, so fortunately we can't have Brian alive tonight, but we can bring his comment to you folks. Brian, great to see you in Orlando this summer, by the way. Two of my favorite Giants fans. Good luck from your friends at Sportsbox on what might be a long year, but getting that super high draft pick you deep down know you need for your new quarterback.
Yeah, no. I'll ask you a question, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
How would you feel if we ended up with Arch Manning on our team?
Ecstatic.
Really?
To a degree.
Okay.
I don't know much about him yet, but obviously he won't be coming out this year. He's probably not going to come out for another 2 years because Quinn Ewers is starting, and my assumption is he's going to need at least 2 years starting at Texas before heading to the NFL draft. So that's my thoughts on that. It won't be until a while for now, and that's kind of why I'm still not saying I'm stringing along Daniel Jones for Arch Manning, but I think the Giants are better than a 2 or 3 win team is what I'm trying to say. I've heard some stuff. He's a little loopy here and there. He's probably not going to be as good as Eli or Peyton. There's these very unrealistic expectations for him, but I mean, he's a Manning. He has to be better than Danny Jones, no?
Yeah, well, I guess time will tell on that, but I was just very curious to hear your thoughts about Arch Manning.
I don't know much about him other than the fact that he's a Manning and he plays for Texas right now.
Right. Same.
That's all I know. And he lost his ID card last year before classes officially started. I'm like, how the hell do you do that?
I saw that and someone turned it into a flag at the Texas game. It was very funny.
Let's get into some of the notes we have for some key offseason takeaways, folks. If you haven't been following during the offseason, we've got it for you. Giants only returned 5 offensive starters from last season. 6 guys are gone. 7 starters return on defense, despite the new defensive coordinator, and only 33 players from the end of last year's 53-man roster. And Sam, we wanted to highlight that offensive line, and new faces all across the board pretty much, except for left tackle and center. The Giants went out and signed John Runyon in free agency to a 3-year, $30 million contract, $10 million a year. Outbid the Jets by $1 million to get him.
Nice.
I get why they were interested in him. Aaron Rodgers played with him for a year or two. And then the right side is both Raiders.
Right.
Makes sense. New offensive line coach, Carmen Brasillo, coming over from the Raiders. And Sam, I don't know about you, Jermaine Illuminor looks like a Giant. He acts like a Giant. He talks like a Giant. Like, he speaks our language. He gets it.
Yeah, I am very excited about Jermaine. It was another one that I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on as well, because he's kind of stepping in for Evan Neal. And obviously, if you guys have watched our show in the past and last year, Evan Neal started to slowly fall off the deep end for the both of us in terms of liking that guy and his talent. But yeah, no, I am so stoked. I feel like he's really going to improve the whole on this offensive line. I think that Daniel Jones is going to be just a little bit more protected, which is a huge thing that we talked about last season as well. Like, if we give Danny the time, he can do it. It's just a matter of, making sure that offensive line is strong enough to give him the opportunity to. So I'm stoked about Illuminor. I think that he's going to be a huge asset to this team, if not like the puzzle piece that we've been missing.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. Greg Van Roten, too, starting right guard, signed late in free agency, right before the preseason started. Giants were really not impressed with the state of their offensive line come preseason. Marcus McKeithen is now gone. Did not even get close to the final cut down. Ben Bredesen went ahead and signed with Tampa Bay. Mark Lewinsky is still a free agent, very unvalued. But you're looking at even the backups. Aaron Stinney I mean, started games for the Bucks the last couple years, and he's a backup. So that's a good start. But I will say, Giants were forced to sign this many offensive linemen via free agency because Joe Shane has missed on draft picks throughout the course of the years at the offensive line position, including Evan Neal, Josh Azudu, and Marcus McKeithen. And that caused us to lose running back Saquon Barkley and safety Xavier McKinney, on top of the fact that the Giants traded Sam for a splash edge rusher in Brian Burns, whose contract combined of Barkley and McKinney's from what they signed for with Philadelphia and Green Bay, respectively. What do you think of Spider-Man himself, Brian Burns?
How I am so excited. I think that our defense is kind of like split in half, right? Like I feel like our secondary isn't the strongest, but having, Brian Burns enter this defense is like going to be so good. And we saw on Hard Knocks, like, they were talking about Brian Burns in episode 1. And it's crazy to think that, like, that was a something that was moving, and before the draft, right? I think that was at the combine, or something like that. So I think Brian Burns, I'm very excited to see him in action. I feel like it's like kind of the same vibes that we felt like with seeing like Kayvon start on defense, and like kind of just like you see them do their job and you're like, wow, like that's what we've been waiting for. We've been waiting for someone to come in and do their job. But the defenses, I'm kind of a little like, like I think they still have some great pieces, obviously, with Dexter and Kayvon and Brian Burns, but there are a few missing pieces there, I think.
Completely agree. I think the Giants are going to be drafting a lot of defensive players next year. Another thing, too, outside of Dexter Lawrence, defensively, there's no depth at DT. I mean, Elijah Chapman, kudos to him, outstanding preseason. UDFA out of SMU, made the roster via a rookie minicamp tryout, but DJ Davidson has never stayed healthy. And then Jordan Riley was okay last year for a late round draft pick, but you can't rely on them to be your top backup defensive tackles. And then Raheem Nunez-Roches is back, but with Nacho, my concern is his age and his cap hit. Next year, he could be gone, where you're looking at the Giants, you draft 6th or 7th, you could be drafting a DT like Mason Graham out of Michigan or Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, guys like that who can come in and hello, Deanna. Thank you so much for the comment. Let's go Giants. There's the castle in the background. I know she misses Disney, so appreciate that.
I love it.
But yeah, and Adoree Jackson is back.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on this? I think it was a desperation move.
Yeah, I kind of like when I first saw it, it was almost like, like that wave of familiarity where you're just like, oh, that's awesome. Like we know Adoree, we know how he is on this team. Like it's cool. And then you had said like, yeah, like I don't know how I feel about this. I was like, yeah, you're kind of right. Like how quick it was coming up to the season, and like we play in a matter of days at this point, and Adoree is just signed, and I'd like to think that he'll fall back into like the Giants routine that he was in before, but obviously this is not the same team that he was on. So I would say that I'm mildly concerned, with the same kind of optimism that like he's going to come back and show us those, I know he was always kind of back and forth as well, but he had some really great moments as a Giant, and I'm hoping that we get to see those same moments again. But you make a very good point where there it might have been a little bit of desperation, and they kind of were like, oh, Adoree's still here, and we could just grab him, and they just kind of did it just like as a last second thing. And yeah, so we'll see.
It's a great point. Now the contract details, there is $0 guaranteed for Adoree Jackson, which is great. Well, not great for him, but great for us. It's a 1-year, $1.75 million deal. He played in Shane Bowen's defense in Tennessee. Bowen was the DC in Tennessee for a while. He was an outside linebackers coach in 2018. Adoree was with Tennessee from 2017 through 2020. So his rookie contract. He's got 3 years of experience with Shane Bowen, being in the same locker room as him. So that could be part of the reason, too, why Big Blue tabbed him up. Now, Daniel Bakley, Thank you very much for the comment. Welcome back. Best of luck to your new running back this year. Excited to see him in October, Saquon Barkley. But not too much luck. I saw Chris Sims actually projected Saquon as the NFL Offensive Player of the Year.
What?
What a wild take.
I saw somebody say that this is giving Christian McCaffrey, like, leaving Carolina and going to the 49ers, which, I'll always wish the best for Saquon, just because he was on our team for so long, and I'll always appreciate what he did for us, but I'd like to not see the Eagles thrive, which also I'm interested in the schedule because normally we play the Eagles so late and we're playing them super early this year.
What is it, week 5, week 6?
I think it's week 6, and the Eagles bye is like week 5, which is crazy that there's people that are on bye so early in the season this year.
And we're week 11.
And we're week 11, which is like, I think, the perfect time to have a bye.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah.
Giants will be in Germany in November as well to play the Carolina Panthers. So, German fans, I hope you're not disappointed. I know probably two of the lesser teams that you'd like to see, although the Giants have a good audience in Europe, especially after playing the first game in London back in 2007 at Wembley Stadium. So, Giants are also undefeated overseas. That includes the UK, and I don't remember if they played in Germany before. I think this is their first time. Yes, that's right. It is their first time in Germany.
Yeah, because I think they just started Germany games last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we haven't played in like Mexico or anything yet either.
No. Now, I want to ask you, there were some interesting stories written about this last week surrounding our rookie wide receiver, Malik Nabers, receiving approval from the family of Ray Flaherty to unretire the number 1 jersey that's been retired for nearly 100 years now. The first ever retired number in the National Football League. I think it's a great way to honor the legacy of Ray Flaherty and his family as well, it being the 100th season, but I also see how some people are a little annoyed about it because it does open the door to future numbers being unretired, if that makes sense. And I get it. Father of Time plays its course, and eventually you're going to have to unretire numbers. And like another 100 years from now, I mean, we're not going to be making guys wear like 150. That's not going to happen. Right. I just want to get your thoughts on that before we move on.
Yeah. So my brother did ask me about this because he was interested to hear my thoughts as well. And I think that it's okay if the family is coming out and saying like, hey, like, especially with being in the 100th season and everything, like, I think it's okay, but I am interested to see now, like, the door that has been opened, like you said, like, what that means. Like, are people just going to say, like, not be asking the family if this person is no longer alive? Are they going to start asking guys who are alive? Like, if that were me, I'd be like, no, you can't have my jersey. Like, I went through a whole thing where they retired my number. Like, I don't want that. So I feel like it is like a gray area right now, but I appreciate the fact that the family was so generous to allow Malik Nabers to wear number 1. But it's complicated because, like I said, it's this gray area where it's like, well, who are we asking now? And then it's like, is it recent? Does it have to be a certain amount of years? There's a lot of components. And I think that if they're opening this door, like the NFL is opening this door, they need to set ground rules for it. Like a certain amount of time needs to pass or something along those lines. Cause like, you can't just pull a number out of the ground and unretire it. Like, that's the whole point of retiring a number, is to honor that person. So I don't know. It's kind of iffy.
Totally. It's pretty ballsy for a rookie to ask, too. But I will say, outside of that, I've been very impressed with Malik Nabers this offseason. the way he's handled himself. I think on the fields, he has looked like the best thing the Giants have had since Odell Beckham. This has nothing to do with them attending the same college either. It's essentially in the modern NFL, unless you have a quarterback like a Patrick Mahomes, you need a wide receiver that's going to make flashy plays like that. Joe Burrow has one. Trevor Lawrence has one. CJ Stroud has a couple. So guys like that are going to uplift teams. And I think, too, you look, Brock Purdy's looked so good for San Francisco because he's got Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. What has Daniel Jones had since he's been with the Giants in 2019? Darius Slayton, Evan Ingram, Sterling Shepard, Daniel Bellinger, Wan'Dale Robinson, who's been hurt, Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins. Like, there hasn't been a number one for Daniel Jones, and he finally has it in Malik Nabers. I will say this guy has hell of expectations to live up to, and I almost feel bad for Malik Nabers. It's almost unfair right now. But with all things considered, will this translate into a good season for Daniel Jones? And I'll be honest with you, Sam, I think it's going to. I really, really do. My only concern is, will he look like Carson Wentz off the ACL and have his career ruined by it? Or will he look like how Joe Burrow looked?
Right. Yeah, it's – oh, man. I was thinking about this because it's something that we have brought up for at least 2 years now on this show, where we've said if Daniel Jones had the weapons, he'd be performing. I think I've even in the past said, I think maybe this was before the 49ers were in the Super Bowl, but I even said, like, Daniel Jones and Brock Purdy aren't that different in the fact that, the 49ers just have such a good team around them that Brock Purdy just needs to be a talented quarterback and just get the ball where it needs to go. And, they have Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel. Like, they have this elite members on their offense. And while we don't have elite members everywhere on this offense, like you said, Malik Nabers is the first, true number one wide receiver. And if Malik Nabers is actually, leading up to this upcoming season, if he's actually going to show us what we've been seeing him in the preseason, looks pretty good. We've seen him at LSU, looks pretty good. So I'd say the kid's pretty good. But the thing is, though, if Daniel Jones can't perform the way he does with Malik Nabers, it's it. It's going to be very obvious. It's if he can't do it, but I agree with you, though. I do think that it's going to be a tough decision at the end of the season where we're sitting there like, man, we've been talking about, this do or die year for Daniel Jones. And if he does perform really well and some people still are iffy about it, it's going to be a whole other debate. And whether or not, and then of course money comes into play with the contract and everything. It's going to be tough if he plays very well. He'll make it easy for everyone if he doesn't play well, or he gets hurt again. But I would love to see Daniel Jones throwing the ball to Malik Nabers and scoring touchdowns. It'll be so refreshing for us to see.
I think we all would. I really do. And for those of you folks who have been watching our show for a couple of years now, we both like Daniel Jones. We do. We're not Daniel Jones haters. However, if he gets hurt again this year and looks like the way he did last year, it's time to move on. It's time to move on. I respect the hell out of the kid and appreciate everything he's done. But I'm telling you, we cannot see a repeat of 2023 or 2021 or 2020. We have to see 2022 and possibly even a little bit better than that in order for the Giants to keep Daniel Jones, because there is a semi-out in his contract next year where you can save a decent chunk of cash and move on. However, will the Giants be able to move on? Because I don't see them winning any less than 6 games this season. I think they're going to win at least 6 games this year, and we'll see where that'll put them. But yeah, let's get into our week 1 preview against the Minnesota Vikings. Why don't we? So one thing I really wanted to talk about is last year, Sam, in 2023, the Giants and the Vikings had nearly identical seasons, except I think the Vikings had a little more talent than we did last year. Um, the Vikings, they were 6-4 at one point after starting 0-4. They lost Kirk Cousins to a season-ending injury. The Giants lost Daniel Jones to a season-ending injury. And let's be honest, Sam, these teams met in the playoffs in 2022. They were two of the best 7 teams in the NFC. I'll say 6 because Seattle really shouldn't have made the playoffs, in my personal opinion, but they did. Both these teams need to get back on track. Both their head coaches are entering year 3 in Brian Daboll and Kevin O'Connell. And a lot of people, I know, Sam, you and I have probably both been seeing this. They expect an ugly, sloppy game between these two teams. And I'm going to be honest with you, I see it because Sam Darnold's returning to MetLife. There are a lot of factors in this game that, in my personal opinion, work against the Minnesota Vikings. And that's one of them.
Yeah. It's interesting because, this is the one playoff game that Daniel Jones won. It's like that's pretty exciting on paper to think about that, the Vikings, but obviously not this Vikings team. It's a completely different Vikings team. And in fact, it's a more vulnerable Vikings team, obviously, without Kirk Cousins and without J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold stepping in, and maybe there's feelings in MetLife or, whatever it may be. But yeah, this game, I've gone back and forth in my head, and I was just speaking, with Jordan before this while we did our podcast. As Sporty Jordy is our resident Eagles fan on this show, and she was saying like, wow, like that's actually an interesting game because it really could go either way. It's like one of those good starting games. Like last year it was like the Cowboys, and we just came in there swinging, and we were like, we're gonna win, and then we got blown out completely. But yeah, I'm actually feel like this is a really great starting matchup with the Minnesota Vikings. Like, yes, they have Justin Jefferson, and he is one of the best wide receivers in the league, probably going to be one of the best wide receivers of all time. It just, it's a little scary in that respect, but Sam Darnold definitely turns it down a little bit. So I keep going back and forth in my head about it, but I think I've made my decision, and we'll talk about it when we do our prediction, obviously, for the game.
A lot of factors going into this week, folks. And if you have any comments and questions for us as we preview this week 1 matchup, please ask. We'd be happy to converse with you and answer them. And we appreciate you all tuning in. So quick notes, Giants have been very busy behind the scenes. They've let go of a lot of players via injury settlements. Isaiah McKenzie being one of them. He did not make the roster over Gunnar Olszewski. There was a time, Sam, where I thought McKenzie would make it over Olszewski, and Olszewski's been moving very gingerly in practice. But when they talked to special teams coordinator Mike Gabriel today, new special teams coordinator coming over from the Jets, they seemed pretty optimistic on Gunnar's availability. He was limited, and he really talked about securing the football. So if Gunnar does play, you got to remember, too, only 48 guys are dressing. 2 will be called up from the practice squad, and they'll be playing along with the 46. But Olszewski has a chance to play. I think he's a decent returner. They also terminated Miles Boykin from the practice squad, and I think that goes to show folks how well Bryce Ford-Wheaton played this preseason, who, being a UDFA out of West Virginia last year, suffered a season-ending injury in the preseason. I was very impressed to see Ford-Wheaton make the roster. I did not think he was going to make it, and Ford-Wheaton knew he was making it because he acknowledged me in one of my posts online.
Yeah,
that
I saw that.
I don't know if you saw that, and I'm like, please don't hate me, kid. I think you are good, but coming off an injury, I thought they might go elsewhere with a more experienced player. And yeah, Brian Daboll announces he'll be the offensive play caller this year. So that's pretty much what's been going on.
Big change, I think.
Huge.
I think it's going to make a huge difference, and I think week 1 we will be seeing this different Giants team, even if it's not like, exponentially better. I think that, Kafka no longer calling plays is going to make a difference for us.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting. The Vikings are favored by 1.5 in this game. They went 3-0 in the preseason. They'll be at MetLife. The last meeting, we know what happened there. The Giants won the NFC wildcard playoff game in 2022. But before that, the Vikings had won 4 straight against Big Blue, and they still lead the all-time series 18-13. And I brought this note up last year. I don't want to bring it up again, but I'm going to. The Giants have just won 2 games to start the season since 2010, one of them being 2022, the other time 2016. Sam, both of those years they made the playoffs. So when the Giants win a week 1 game since 2010, they're making the playoffs. How important is it to get out to a 1-0 start compared to an 0-1 start? Everyone's always like, oh, it's 1 game. But to the Giants, sometimes it makes or breaks everything.
It usually sets the tone for our entire season. And I think last year is a great example of that, seeing us get blown out by the Cowboys, and then, the way that the rest of that season just unfolded was just like so garbage. Except for like that one game where we were playing the Bills and I think Tyrod Taylor was playing. I was so excited watching that game. We were so close to winning. But nonetheless, 100%, I think, especially for this team, morale will be so much higher if we win that first game. Yes, of course, it'll be against Sam Darnold. It's not going to be like this all-time team. It's not like we're going up against the Chiefs and winning week 1. But I definitely think morale will be so much higher. Fans will feel really good about it. People will probably on Twitter will go off the rails and think, all of a sudden the Giants are going to the Super Bowl, which they're not. But it's just, I would feel much more comfortable with a win week 1 and a win week 2. Why not? Let's throw that into the mix. Let's win week 2 as well. It'll really change the name of the game. And then of course people will be talking like, oh, is Daniel Jones better? Oh, is the play calling's getting better, and this and that and the other thing. So the narrative will change.
Absolutely. I think it will too. And speaking of Daniel Jones, that sort of leads us into our keys of the game. And my most important key of this game is building off of how the offensive line has looked in the preseason, protecting Daniel Jones. Every time somebody says Daniel Jones had a shitty year last year, sure, you're right. But at the same time, the Giants' O-line last year was historically bad. Right. 85 sacks given up amongst all 3 quarterbacks that played. That's the second most all-time in any season, in any team's history. Jones was sacked 30-plus times, 30 times in 5-plus games. That's 6 sacks a game. That's horrible. I mean, that's absolutely horrendous, atrocious. And what is concerning, too, and they both sort of joked about this last week, he took a picture of the starting 5 offensive linemen this year because that was the first time they played in practice together, was about a week and a half ago, was the first time all 5 were healthy, ready to go, because John Michael Schmitz was nursing a shoulder injury this offseason, and that limited him too. And that's another guy who has to be much better this year entering year 2, Sam.
Yeah, I was devastated when John Michael Schmitz was not playing last year, because he was like the way that Jermaine is like the piece of the puzzle this year. I thought John Michael Schmitz was going to be like the piece of the puzzle last year, getting that center. And I really wish that he had a little bit more on the field, time last year. But I am still very confident in him, and I think that it's going to be such a big change. This offensive line, I feel like, is going to change everything. But John Michael Schmitz, having that good center makes a difference, and it really affects the quarterback. And he's going to sophomore year now, right? He was drafted last year. Okay. And obviously you shake off those rookie jitters. Despite coming off an injury, you've learned more, you've seen more. It's time to get in there and start leading that offensive line and really making sure that that becomes a brick wall, because Lord knows we need it.
I second that. What's up, goofballs? How are you? What up, everybody? Good podcast, by the way. Make sure to go check them out. We still have to do that collaboration with you guys. Would love to do that at some point this season. So we'll definitely be in contact with each other for sure. Share some good laughs. Yeah, to your point, Andrew Thomas has to stay healthy. Jermaine Illuminor has to stay healthy because Minnesota's pass rush is no joke. Dallas Turner, first-round pick after McCarthy. Obviously, they lost J.J. McCarthy for the season, and that stinks because I thought he was going to have a really good rookie year. Not the case now. Dallas Turner, Jonathan Greenard from Houston last year had 12.5 sacks there. The Vikings bring in him to replace Danielle Hunter. And Andrew Van Ginkel signed as well from the Miami Dolphins, had 6.5 sacks last year. So it's interesting to see because that pass rush is lethal, Sam. But I think if the O-line holds enough, that secondary is very, very vulnerable. You have older veterans back there like Stephon Gilmore, who they just signed. Harrison Smith is 34 years old now. Their two safeties were the leading tacklers last year. Each of their safeties had over 100 tackles. So if you get past their front seven, they could really be exposed, which is why I think Malik Nabers will have a big game.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with everything you said. I think that, I said it earlier, but this Vikings team is not as strong as it would have been. And it's a bit vulnerable, which is good for us because then it means that we can latch on to that vulnerability and make plays out of it, because otherwise, I would be a little nervous going into this week, but yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be very, very interesting. Sam, for you, what are you thinking as your key to the game? What must the Giants accomplish? I know you've kind of touched upon certain points throughout the show, but how do they get to 1-0?
I think that, oh man, there's so many things. It's like it's hard trying to pick one, but I definitely think that the offense gluing together and molding into a singular offense is probably one of the biggest things to go into this week. It's to come out swinging strong, to show, yes, we can get down the field, yes, we can score points, which has obviously been a huge issue for us apparently these past few years. Like, just can't put points on the board. This is a brand new team, and I think that that's going to be the best thing, is molding this offense. And of course, I'm really excited to watch this offensive line. I think that's instead of picking one player to watch, I think I'm going to pick all of them. I think I'm just going to pick this entire offensive line to keep an eye out for. And of course, Daniel Jones. It's kind of all on his shoulders right now. And yes, I know it's a team sport, but at the same time, it all comes down to him.
Yeah, this season is clearly riding on him. I think what will help him too is you got to win in the trenches. Dexter Lawrence is scary. Occupies two defenders. Going up against Garrett Bradbury, their center. The Vikings have 4 O-line returners this year from last year, so their O-line is in a lot better place than ours as far as continuity goes. So for our sake, hopefully the Giants can gel. Hopefully those 4 guys can be in sync, or those 5 guys, I should say. And it's going to be interesting, too, with John Michael Schmitz going up against former Bill, now Viking, Harrison Phillips, who had 93 tackles last year for Minnesota, knows a lot about Brian Daboll's offense. Obviously, Justin Jefferson is a huge problem for any team, not just our team, but Deonte Banks and Justin Jefferson, for me, that's the matchup to watch on Sunday, folks. Can Banks hold his ground? Because I don't know about you, Sam, I thought Banks had a very good rookie season. There were struggles at times, but I'm concerned about a potential sophomore slump for him.
Yeah, there are guys like that have those really big breakout seasons, and then they come into this next following year and it's really not as much as we thought it was going to be. I really hope that doesn't happen. Banks was someone that I think really surprised us last year, and we were like super stoked about him. I'd really hope that no, that doesn't happen. But now that you say it, now it's gonna sit in my brain. Yeah, it's possible. It's very possible, but we hope for the best.
And Sam, I know you highlighted some players to watch already. Daniel Jones and the entire offensive line. I think Daniel Bellinger too is going to be very important not just in this game but in this season. He's back to tight end 1. 2022 as a rookie, he was tight end 1. Last year he took a back seat to Waller, and I know you're a Bellinger fan, as am I. What are your expectations for him this season?
I think that I have pretty high expectations for Daniel Bellinger, actually. I think that, he's had this time to grow. He's now also sat behind a veteran in Darren Waller, despite him being a little strange, as we've realized this past year. And, we didn't even talk about Darren Waller, but he's no longer with us. I don't think we have time to unpack all of Darren Waller stuff right now. But yeah, it'd be a whole Darren Waller show. But, still, Darren Waller, despite it all, he's a good tight end. So I'm sure there was things that Bellinger learned from him, but I'd like to think that he's gathered the knowledge that he needs, and now as a tight end 1, he can step up and be the guy that I was expecting him to be in like his rookie year. I think I put these high expectations on him like the second he got on the team. But I think that's going to be great. I think that he's going to, he's going to be a big target for Daniel. Obviously, they've been together these last few years, and this is his 3rd year now, right? Okay. I'm like still trying to sorry guys, I'm like dusting off the Giants and football cobwebs right now, getting into week 1. But yeah, it's Daniel Bellinger. I think my expectations for him are high, and if he's not reaching those expectations, then it might be time to consider looking for a tight end in the offseason, because it's a big deal for us, and they're another position that we really haven't had like a exponentially good player in that position. Evan Ingram went back and forth for so long, but he's doing well now on the Jags, but he just didn't mesh well on our team. So, that's another player that he needs to step up to the plate now and be tight end 1 in the same way that Malik Nabers is trying to step up to be wide receiver 1.
I agree. I think too, Theo Johnson's going to be heavily involved in this offense. 4th-round rookie tight end out of Penn State. He's going to be very involved. I think you're going to see a lot of 12 personnel this year, but guys, week 1, Bellinger is tight end 1, and I think having Theo Johnson, a younger guy, looking up to Daniel Bellinger, who's only entering year 3, which is crazy to say, and then Chris Manhurt stuck around as the blocking tight end, and I'll be honest, Sam, I wanted the Giants to keep 4 tight ends, not 3. Our 4th tight end, I mentioned earlier in the show, I started alluding to it, but I didn't mention it, wound up getting claimed back by the Philadelphia Eagles. Jack Stoll, who played every snap of the Giants' final preseason game against the Jets. Joe Shane signs him to a 1-year deal this spring, spends the summer with us, heads back down the turnpike, gives all the information to the Eagles that he learned from the Giants. This is a spy, hired as a spy by Nick Sirianni and Howie. Love it.
Not surprising at all on the Eagles' part.
Nope. Kevin saying, let's go Giants. Let's go Big Blue, Kevin. Thank you very much for the comment. For me, for the Vikings, I'm looking at Aaron Jones. We haven't really talked about him yet. New running back for them this year. He'll split time with Ty Chandler, but Jones spent his first 6 to 7 years with the Packers. He's older now. Good pass catcher and a runner. Had 650 yards last season on the ground. I like him a lot. We also have to consider, too, Jordan Addison had 10 touchdowns as a rookie last year, and the rumor is he'll be ready to go. He had over 900 yards and 10 scores. He was forced to step up because Justin Jefferson only played 10 games. Jefferson's an obvious catapult of this offense, but when you're looking at players to watch, I'm looking more at players that might catch you off guard a little bit. And right now, the Giants CB2 position, we don't even know who's starting week 1, and we're 4 days out. That's not good.
No.
So I think Addison's going to feast because Banks will clearly be on Jefferson. I don't know if Flott's going to play. And then we have a rookie slot guy. Darnay's not on the team anymore. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm very, very concerned about that, Sam. I think Jordan Addison's probably going to have a really good game. A couple deep plays maybe or intermediate catches, and it gets me a little bit concerned. They had an opportunity to sign Stephon Gilmore. They didn't. Cash is not as tight for the Giants as we thought it was after Waller retired and they restructured Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence. So, there's some wiggle room, and they kind of just left it fluid for the season, which I get it, but Dory Jackson better be good. That's all I'm saying.
Is Jordan Addison is for sure playing this weekend?
The last I heard, he was playing.
Because I thought he was getting suspended. Unless that just fell through.
They said he was limited in Wednesday's Vikings practice. I think the alleged suspension got dropped.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just looking up some articles and I'm like, no, I'm not seeing them.
Right.
And that they were from a month ago. But
DUI. I mean, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
2 misdemeanors.
Aaron Jones was someone that I was going to bring up when we were talking more Vikings, because I feel like he's going to be kind of like the sneaky offensive weapon on this team. Obviously, yes, of course, we have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, but, we're dealing with Sam Darnold here, and if I were him, and I don't want to make myself look like as bad of a quarterback as I have in the past, I'm passing the ball off. That is a very easy play call to do where you're just like, oh, yep, give it to Aaron. Oh, yep, give it to Aaron. And Aaron will nickel and dime this defense. I'm hoping that the defense will see something along those lines and be prepared for it and be able to stop the run. I'll throw that in there as another key to the game, stop the run. But yeah, I think Aaron Jones is going to be a little bit sneaky on this Vikings team, only because of the quarterback that they have right now.
Great player. Always liked him. And defensively for Minnesota, I'm going to roll with Ivan Pace Jr. The Vikings have revamped their linebacker room. Eric Kendricks went to the Chargers last offseason. They signed Blake Cashman from the Houston Texans to join Ivan Pace Jr. But Pace had 102 tackles last year. He'll be on that second level, really helping out Harrison Smith and that back line. They need better linebackers. They didn't have that last year. They were going with older players like Jordan Hicks. It just wasn't cutting it. And, having an elder statesman in the secondary like Stephon Gilmore, who's 33 now, you want to have good linebackers that are going sideline to sideline. And Pace, playing in that Cincinnati Bearcats defense for 4 years, he's very fast, he's physical, he's aggressive. And another thing, too, I threw Blake Cashman in there. Him and Devin Singletary were teammates last year.
Oh.
So there's a connection there that is definitely a little concerning. And Sam, I did want to talk a little bit about Devin Singletary because I think he's going to be really good for us. I like him a lot. Nicknamed the Motor.
I know. I saw that on Hard Knocks and I was like, who's the Motor? And they were talking about Devin Singletary. Apparently that's what people call him. But yeah, I think that, Devin Singletary is our new Saquon Barkley, basically. And, it's kind of what a comparison that is. Yeah. But at the same time, we need a strong running back. And Devin Singletary, he's been around for a while. He is a seasoned running back. And I'm pretty sure his injury list is pretty short. I can't really remember any time where Devin Singletary was so hurt to the point of it, affecting his career in any way. But yeah, like I said, I have him on my bench in my fantasy team just in case he starts running amok. Because, otherwise we have Tyrone Tracy and Eric Gray. Those guys, yes, while, they'll prove to be helpful in terms of depth, Devin Singletary is our running back. He is our guy. So hopefully they feed him and he takes off because he's our guy.
You want to hear this stat, Sam, about Singletary?
Oh boy.
Since 2019, he's only missed one game due to injury.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't remember Devin Singletary ever getting hurt exponentially. So,
Yep.
I mean, that's a great track record for a running back.
Yep.
Like, it's pretty good.
Now, granted, our offensive line last year was much different from Houston's, but Singletary had 898 rushing yards last year. Saquon had 962. That's like a 90-yard difference for $8 million less per year. So you guys do the math, and they're the same age.
It's pretty interesting. Actually, yeah. I think Saquon's a year older than him.
Yes, he is. I think Singletary just turned 27. That's what it was. Yeah, late birthday. But yeah, Saquon's a bit older. Look, I wish Saquon nothing but the best. It's going to be weird on Sunday to see a running back wearing 26 in our backfield, not named Saquon. It sucks, but it's reality.
Yeah, reality. Unfortunate. But I agree. You telling me that injury stat and us talking about it right now has me a little bit more on the positive side of Devin Singletary because, at this point, though, he has to be good. I think that's it. I think it's like we have no other option than for Devin Singletary to be a good running back for us.
Now, Sam, is there anyone else on the Vikings that we're watching on Sunday? They do have a rookie kicker out of Alabama, but, who knows?
I mean, we're hitting a lot of people, but yeah, I think that those are the main guys here.
Yeah, I do want to acknowledge, lastly, their tackles. Brian O'Neill and Christian Darrisaw going up against Brian Burns and Kayvon Thibodeau. That's another very highly intense matchup. The Giants struggled to get to the quarterback last year, despite their number one blitz frequency in the NFL. So, yeah, Shane Bowen notorious for stopping the run and relying much more on his front four to get pressure. So that'll definitely be interesting. Anyone on the defense? I know Brian Burns, obviously. We have to highlight him because he's a dog. He's really, really good. And I liked what I saw from him in preseason.
I'll definitely say Brian Burns, but I got to throw in my guy, Bobby O. We love Bobby O. I actually had the privilege of meeting him back in February in Vegas when I was at the Super Bowl. My boss introduced me to him and he was like, "This is our producer. She's a Giants fan. She loves you." And I was like, "Oh my God. Hi, Bobby. How are you?" His hands are like two of mine. He has very, very large hands and he's a very, very kind guy. So I'm going to shout out Bobby O because also just an animal on the field. Like, amazing.
I envy you. That's awesome. Bobby O is the best free agent signing we've had, arguably since Plexico Burress.
Yeah, I agree.
There are another few mentions, but yeah, for me, Bobby O. Again, TJ Hawkinson is out. He's on the PUP list, so we won't have to worry about him. Josh Oliver and Johnny Munt will be splitting the reps at tight end, so we'll see how they do on that second level. Micah McFadden is nursing a groin injury, but he's trending upwards towards playing. That's good because the entire linebacker room was hurt in the preseason. Carter Coughlin missed the whole preseason with an injury and still made the roster. I think we all knew Carter Coughlin was making it. I think it was Caitlin Brower asked if Carter Coughlin was still on the team. She totally forgot about him. I'm like, he's still there because I was doing who's left from the Gettleman era. That's still on this team.
But you're still keeping that list. I know you are.
The list is back up to 9 because they signed Adoree again. But I have the list here if you want to hear it. So it's
hit me with it.
Daniel Jones, obviously, Andrew Thomas, Casey Kreider, Graham Gano, Azeez Ojulari, Darius Slayton, Carter Coughlin. That's it.
I feel like Azeez is
Dexter Lawrence.
Oh, Dexter. Azeez, do you think he's going to stay on that list much longer?
So rumor was there was rumors of him possibly getting traded on cut down day. I wonder if that will pick up steam again during the season, depending on how he plays, because he is on a contract year.
I wouldn't be surprised. I remember last year you were even talking about how disappointed you were watching him. You were expecting a lot more.
I like him too a lot.
I know.
Which sucks, but I'm going to be a realist and say this is probably his last year as a Giant, unless he does something miraculous this year.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Learns how to stay on the field. But yeah, and then other than that, the injury report's pretty clean. I think everyone that's questionable is expected to play, except for maybe Drew Lock. I'm not sure with the abdomen that he suffered in week 1 of the preseason.
Right.
And then there's Olszewski, who battling a groin. He's moving very gingerly. I'm surprised they're thinking he's going to play. I mean, that might just be smoke. I don't know. And then there's Dane Belton with the back. So I don't know who's going to start at safety, Sam, if it'll be Dane Belton or Tyler Nubin, because obviously McKinney is gone. We know Pinnock is one of the incumbents, and Belton was the incumbent as well. But Nubin's been so impressive. The second-round pick out of Minnesota, he's looked really good in the offseason, and he might be that Iron Man type of guy that fits Shane Bowen's scheme a little bit more than X would have. But X is another guy I'm going to miss, but he wasn't worth $17 million a year for his price tag.
Yeah. I agree, though, about Gunner. Groin injuries are not just like a 1, 2, 3, let's walk on the field type of injury. Like that takes some nursing because you're constantly walking around anyway. So it's like it's hard for you to nurse that back to health. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. I think we're ready for our game predictions, which I'm stoked for.
Oh, walking into this again.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, it's very, very hard I think, for both you and I to go against the Giants going into week 1 of the season. I am going to say that the Giants beat the Vikings this week. It's going to be incredibly close. I'm going to say 21-20 New York Giants.
I completely agree that it's going to be one of those games where you kind of just expect your team to win. And folks, I'm going to be honest with you. About 95% of Giants content creators this weekend are probably going to pick the Giants. 95% of Vikings content creators are going to pick the Vikings. I'm going to follow that trend, but explain why I think the Giants will win this game. It's not just any week 1. It's week 1 of the 100th season. The stadium is going to be rocking. It's going to be the first game back, and the Giants have the Vikings number. They looked really good towards the end of last season when they had Tommy DeVito at quarterback. That last month of the season, Christmas Day, almost coming back against Philly. 2 weeks later, beating Philly.
Yeah.
And then the offensive line is in a really good place right now. I really like where the offensive line is at. And the biggest thing for me is, would you rather have Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones? I think the question is clear. I'd rather have Daniel Jones on 2 left feet than Sam Darnold. And that's why I'm picking the Giants to win this game 14-13. And Malik Nabers and Justin Jefferson will offset each other in this game, in my opinion. Everyone's so concerned about Justin Jefferson, but nobody's talking about Malik Nabers. Like, people are like, oh, this is going to be a garbage game. Not many points are going to be scored. Sure, but there's 2 of the most potentially prolific wide receivers in the NFL playing in this game. People forget about that as well. I have the Giants winning 14-13, 2 touchdowns. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say Malik's going to get 1 and Singletary's going to get 1.
Heck yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that. I'll throw it in there, and I'll say Daniel Bellinger gets 1.
Okay. I like it.
Why not?
He did score a touchdown in the 22 playoff game against them on the road. So we each have 1-point wins.
Yeah.
Like that. Um, lastly, record.
All
What are you
right.
thinking here?
I'd like to say that this could go either way. And I will be um again optimistic here because it's hard to go into this just saying, 3-14. Like, no, I'm not gonna guess that. I think that they have the potential to almost split even here. I'm gonna go 8-9. It won't be a winning season, but it'll be a push in the right direction. And whether or not that's with Daniel Jones or not, the offense is growing and this team is growing and the defense is growing. So I think that, you know, they do well enough for themselves and not completely hurt our feelings, but aren't still on the winning side of things.
I totally respect that. And I sort of agree with that too. For me, last year, my expectations were a little bit too high. I said 10-7, 11-6. Um, I think the Giants' floor this year is 7 wins, in my personal opinion, because the line is better. As long as they stay healthy, they have some very winnable games on their schedule. Carolina in Germany this week, next week, Washington at home. They may get one against Dallas. Who knows? Although Dallas has had our number, so I wouldn't bet on that. They play the NFC South this year, guys. The Saints are not a good football team. Their head coach is on the hot seat. The Atlanta Falcons have Kirk Cousins, but what happens if he goes down? And I'm sorry, Sam, Baker Mayfield has not put together 2 good back-to-back seasons since being in the NFL. He's an every other year type of guy, and last season was a great season.
I can't accept that.
He
beat the Eagles for us in the playoffs. We got to give him that.
That he did. He almost got Sirianni fired, though, which would have been a disaster for us, because I think they should give him a 10-year extension.
Sirianni?
I know.
The worst. I do not.
They're not going to win. They're not going to win a ring with him, so that's why I keep saying extend him. Please do. 7-10 is the floor, and I think that's what they are this year. 7-10. I want to go low because typically when I go low, folks, they exceed that bar. The optimistic side of me is thinking 9-8, but 7-10 is my official record prediction. I just weigh this as one of two things, right? This season weighs on Daniel Jones staying healthy, staying available, and playing good football. And number 2, just not having as many injuries as a team that they did last year. This team was decimated via injury, and I'm going to be honest with you, this team lacks depth at some key positions. At cornerback, you have to have good cornerbacks in the NFL going up against elite wide receivers. Defensive tackle, there's almost no depth behind Dexter Lawrence. They have good, serviceable players, but nobody that can keep up with the likes of star NFL running backs and O-lines. So in my personal opinion, with all things considered, 7-10 is the way to go here. That's my prediction. They'll miss the playoffs, but they'll finish in third in the NFC East. Brian Daboll will keep his job. It's silly to say his job is on the line this year, guys. It's not. He's definitely coming back for year 4, unless they go 0-17, which they're not doing that either. But yeah, that's my record prediction.
Love it.
Yep. So without further ado, folks, want to quickly thank everybody for joining us here tonight. It's been a blast. Sam, I'd say you would think the same. We had a lot of fun.
100%. I'm happy to be back. We need this outlet with each other to get all our feelings on the Giants out here.
It's great to be back, and it's the 100th season of Giants football. There's a lot to be happy about and look forward to. Quickly, folks, if you're new joining us tonight, or if you're recurring and haven't done so yet, please check us out below on all of our social media platforms. We are going to be putting up consistent content this season. You know what? We're going to give post-game reactions. We're going to do live shows once a week. We're going to be doing a lot, and I'm really excited for it, and I hope you guys are with us for the ride. All right. Sam, it's been a great pleasure tonight doing this show. Appreciate you. As always, on behalf of Sam Cardona Norberg, I'm Tom Scavetta saying so long. You've been watching Big Blue Avenue here on YouTube and Facebook Live. And without further ado, let's go Big Blue.